Carlos Umberto Santana Barragan entered this world on July 20th, 1947, in Autlanda, Navarro, a small town in the Mexican state of Jalisco. His birth came during a time when Mexico was still finding its footing in the post-World War II era, and the Santana family, like so many others, was navigating the precarious line between poverty and survival. His father, Jose Santana, was a mariachi violinist who traveled constantly, taking whatever gigs he could find to support his growing family. His mother, Josefina Barragan, managed the household with a firm hand, instilling in young Carlos a sense of discipline that would later serve him well. The home was filled with music from the very beginning. Carlos would later recall that his earliest memories were of his father's violin floating through their modest home, weaving melodies that seemed to carry a magic he couldn't quite comprehend. He didn't just hear the music, he felt it in his bones. It was as if the rhythms and harmonies were already part of his DNA, waiting to be unlocked. By the age of 5, Carlos had already shown enough aptitude that his father began teaching him the violin. By 8, he had graduated to the guitar, and his obsession began in earnest. The family's move to Tijuana when Carlos was 8 was a watershed moment. Tijuana was a border town like no other, a chaotic intersection of Mexican tradition and American influence, where mariachi bands shared space with American rock and roll, and where the line between opportunity and danger was razor thin. For a young boy with an insatiable appetite for music, it was a playground of endless possibilities. For a child with a vulnerable spirit, it was also a hunting ground for predators. It was in Tijuana that Carlos met an American man who would forever alter the course of his life. The man, a friend of the family, took a keen interest in young Carlos, showering him with attention, toys, and clothes. He would drive Carlos across the border into California, promising adventures and treats. But what the man really wanted was something far more sinister. For 2 years, from the age of 8 to 10, Carlos endured sexual abuse at the hand of this man. The abuse only stopped when the man, on one occasion, struck Carlos for looking at a woman through a window. The sudden violence was a break in the pattern, a jarring moment that somehow freed Carlos from the cycle, though the psychological damage was already done. Carlos carried this secret for decades. He would later describe the profound guilt and shame that followed him everywhere, a dark companion that whispered lies into his ear, telling him he was somehow responsible for what had happened. The shame was so deep that he couldn't even speak of it to his family. He buried it deep within himself, and in the years that followed, that buried trauma would manifest in ways that threatened to destroy him. Music became his escape. In Tijuana, he discovered rock and roll, and it was like a revelation. He saw a band called the TJs performing in a park, and the electric energy of their music shook something loose in him. He realized that music could be more than just entertainment. It could be a form of liberation, a way to transcend the pain of everyday existence. He began to teach himself to play blues guitar, absorbing the sounds of B.B. King and John Lee Hooker and blending them with the Latin rhythms he'd grown up with. It was an alchemical combination that would eventually define his signature sound. By the time he was 15, Carlos was already playing guitar in the strip clubs of Tijuana. It was a rough environment for a teenager filled with desperate people and dangerous situations. He saw things that no child should ever witness, including a police officer assaulting a woman who worked at one of the clubs. But the clubs also taught him something valuable: how to hold an audience's attention, how to read a room, and how to make his guitar sing even in the most unlikely settings. He was developing the skills that would later make him a legend, even as he was being shaped by circumstances that would later nearly break him. His family moved again, this time to San Francisco, in search of better opportunities. But San Francisco in the early 1960s was a city in transition. The summer of love was still a few years away, but the seeds of counterculture were already being planted. Carlos arrived in the city with little more than his guitar and a dream. He took a job washing dishes at the TikTok drive-in, earning a pittance, but saving every penny for his immigration papers and a new guitar. He lived in a cramped apartment in the Mission District, sleeping on the floor, because there was no bed, subsisting on a diet of rice and beans because that was all he could afford. His guitar strings would break, and he couldn't afford new ones, so he would tie the broken pieces together or use whatever scraps of wire he could find. The struggle was real, and yet he never stopped playing. His mother, Josefa, was a complicated figure in his life. She was a disciplinarian, sometimes harsh, but she also loved her children fiercely. However, the incident with the savings was a betrayal that Carlos never quite forgot. He had been saving $300, an enormous sum for him at the time, to buy his immigration papers and a proper guitar. His mother took the money without asking and used it to pay for dental work for his sister, another child she apparently favored. When Carlos confronted her, she gave him only $20 back. It was a moment that crystallized his sense of being undervalued and unseen. He left home with that $20 and never looked back. Back in Tijuana, he returned to playing in strip clubs, but the pull of San Francisco was too strong to resist for long. He went back, determined to make his mark on the city's burgeoning music scene. The San Francisco of the mid-1960s was a crucible of artistic ferment. The Haight-Ashbury district was becoming the epicenter of the counterculture movement, and musicians from all over the world were converging on the city to be part of something new and transformative. Carlos Santana, still in his late teens, was determined to be among them. He spent his days busking on the streets, playing at Fisherman's Wharf in Union Square, often earning less than $5 a day. The money was barely enough to survive, but the experience was priceless. He was learning to mix the sounds he heard around him, jazz, blues, folk, rock, into a hybrid that was uniquely his. He met other hungry musicians, fellow dreamers who shared his passion. They formed loose bands, played at local clubs, and honed their craft in the crucible of live performance. Carlos was absorbing everything, his guitar playing becoming increasingly fluid and expressive. He was also developing a signature sound, one that blended the bluesy wail of American rock with the rhythmic complexity of Latin music. It was a combination that would prove to be explosive. The turning point came in 1966. Carlos was working at the TikTok Drive-In when he met Tom Fraser, who introduced him to keyboard player Greg Rowley. Something clicked, and the two musicians realized they had a shared vision for a new kind of band. They recruited David Brown on bass and Marcus Malone on percussion, and the Santana Blues Band was born. The name was a suggestion from percussionist Michael Carabello, who thought Santana was more memorable than the Santana Blues Band. He was right. The band played at the Fillmore, Bill Graham's legendary San Francisco venue, and Graham took notice. Graham was a promoter with an impeccable instinct for talent, and he recognized something special in Santana. He booked them for shows, gave them exposure, and eventually he was instrumental in getting them a slot at Woodstock. The band had not even released their first album when they were asked to perform at the most iconic music festival in history. It was an invitation that would change everything. The journey to Woodstock, however, was far from straightforward. The band was still relatively unknown, and the organizers of the festival had not initially included them in the lineup. But Bill Graham had a card to play. He was helping to organize the festival, and he made a demand. If the organizers wanted his services, they had to include Santana. The organizers reluctantly agreed, slotting the band into a 45-minute set on August 16, 1969, in the afternoon. It was a time slot that seemed impossible to predict, a gamble that could have easily ended in obscurity. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. The band took the stage at Woodstock, a sea of 400,000 people stretching out before them. They were petrified and exhilarated. And then Carlos dropped the bombshell he had taken peyote. Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead had offered him a hallucinogenic substance, and Santana, expecting to play much later that night, had accepted. The effects hit him hard just as he was being called to the stage. The performance is legendary for more than just the music. It was a moment of transcendent willpower. Carlos later described his guitar neck slithering like a snake, his guitar becoming something else entirely. He kept his eyes closed, trusting his fingers to find the right notes, and he prayed to God to help him not to embarrass himself. The performance was raw, passionate, and electric. The music, a fusion of Latin rhythms and bluesy rock, thrilled the crowd, and Santana became an overnight sensation. The rest, as they say, is history. The band's debut album, released just 2 weeks after Woodstock, rode the wave of their newfound fame and became a massive hit. The album stayed on the Billboard charts for 108 weeks, peaking at number 4. The single Evil Ways, a cover of a Willie Bobo song recommended by Bill Graham, reached number 9 on the charts and became their breakthrough hit. The success was dizzying, and Carlos was still only 22 years old. The fame brought opportunities, but it also brought pressure. Carlos had never been one to seek the limelight. He was a deeply spiritual person, and the excesses of rock and roll often clashed with his inner values. He was beginning a journey that would take him through peak and valley, triumph and despair, and ultimately to a place of profound wisdom. In 1973, Carlos Santana married Deborah King, the daughter of blues musician Saunders King. The two met at a concert at the Marin Civic Center, and something between them clicked instantly. Deborah was intelligent, ambitious, and deeply sympathetic to Carlos's spiritual and artistic struggles. Over the years, their relationship would evolve into more than just a marriage. It became a business partnership that would help guide Santana's career through its most challenging years. Deborah was instrumental in managing Carlos's finances, especially during the 1990s when his commercial fortunes had waned. Carlos, distracted by his spiritual pursuits and personal struggles, had not been paying close attention to the business side of his career. Without Deborah's careful management, he admitted he might have ended up with nothing. The couple built an empire together, one that would survive the ups and downs of the music industry. They also founded the Milagro Foundation in 1998, a charity dedicated to helping underprivileged children around the world. The foundation focused on education, health, and the arts, providing opportunities for children who might otherwise have none. For Carlos, the foundation was an expression of his deepest values, a way of giving back and creating a better world. Together, they had 3 children: Salvador, Stella, and Angelica. Salvador followed in his father's footsteps, becoming a songwriter and bandleader. Stella became a singer and songwriter, and Angelica became a writer and film producer. Carlos was determined to be a better father than his own had been, and he worked hard to be present and supportive in his children's lives. But all was not well in the marriage. Carlos, despite his spiritual pretensions, was not always faithful. Deborah, in her 2005 memoir Space Between the Stars, revealed the infidelities that had plagued their relationship. The book was a painful public airing of private grievances, and it precipitated the end of their 34-year marriage. Carlos, for his part, admitted to his infidelity and expressed deep regret for the pain he had caused. He attributed his behavior to a troubled state of mind and promised to become the kind of man Deborah wanted him to be. But the damage was done, and they divorced in 2007. The divorce sent Carlos into a spiral of depression and despair. He had always been prone to emotional extremes, but this was different. The pain was so intense that he felt he could not go on. He attempted suicide 7 times, each attempt a cry of despair, a plea for an end to the suffering. In his lowest moments, he felt that death was the only escape from the overwhelming guilt and shame he carried. He described one such moment in an interview with the Gospel Herald. He looked at a picture of Jesus and a candle, and he felt a soft, powerful voice telling him, "I'm sitting next to you, isn't that enough?" The experience was transformative. It gave him the strength to go on, to keep breathing, to keep eating. Slowly, he began to recover. He found solace in his faith, in the belief that a higher power was watching over him. He also began to confront the trauma of his childhood, the abuse he had suffered, and he found the strength to forgive his abuser. "I remember the day when God gave me the power to forgive my abuser," Carlos told Rolling Stone in 2014. "All of a sudden, I saw him and I saw me, and I realized I was his favorite. I realized he didn't do it to shame me. He was probably shamed by somebody before me, and in my heart, I forgave him." The forgiveness was a turning point. It allowed Carlos to let go of the guilt that had haunted him for so long. It freed him from the past. He began to see his life's struggles as part of a larger spiritual journey, a journey that was ultimately leading him toward healing and wholeness. The year 1999 was a watershed moment in Carlos Santana's career. After years of declining commercial fortunes, he released Supernatural, an album that would become one of the best-selling records of all time. The album sold 30 million copies worldwide, won 9 Grammy Awards, and catapulted Santana back into the stratosphere of rock and roll royalty. The album was the brainchild of Clive Davis, the legendary record executive who had first signed Santana to Columbia Records in 1969. Davis had always believed in Santana's talent, and he had an idea. What if Santana collaborated with a new generation of artists? What if he mixed his signature sound with the pop and rock hits of the day? The result was Supernatural, a collection of songs that featured guest appearances by Rob Thomas, Eric Clapton, Lauryn Hill, and others. The lead single, Smooth, with Rob Thomas on vocals, became a massive hit. The song topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 12 weeks and spent 30 weeks in the top 10. It became the last #1 song of the 1990s and the first of the 2000s. But the song almost didn't happen. It started as a rough idea called Room 17, which was about a groupie meeting Santana in a hotel. Pete Gombarg, an A&R executive, thought the album needed a big hit and pushed for the song. Santana wasn't interested at first, but Clive Davis personally appealed to him, and he eventually agreed. Rob Thomas, who wrote and sang the song, was living a quiet life in New York City when he got involved. He and Santana had a connection, and they recorded the song live in the studio. Santana later described the experience as a tsunami of positivity, a creative burst that produced a timeless track. Supernatural was more than just a commercial success, it was a creative triumph. It showed that Santana, at 52, was still capable of making music that resonated with a global audience. The album also made history. Santana became the first Hispanic artist to win the Grammy for Album of the Year. The success of Supernatural was a vindication. After years of struggling with his personal demons and his commercial fortunes, Carlos had proven that he still had the magic. He was a legend, a living icon, and yet he remained humble. He credited his faith and his family for helping him through the difficult years. He was determined to use his success to help others, and he continued to support the Milagro Foundation. The 1999 Grammy Awards were a night to remember. Santana won 9 awards, tying Michael Jackson's record for the most Grammys won in a single night. The image of Carlos, holding his armful of golden statues, was a symbol of triumph. It was a testament to his resilience, his talent, and his enduring appeal. In his later years, Santana has continued to perform and create music, even as he's faced health challenges. In September 2024, he canceled several shows due to urgent back surgery. In January 2025, he broke his little finger in a fall, leading to more cancellations. Despite these setbacks, he remains optimistic, telling People magazine that "I'm just starting and everything has prepared me for this." He continues to perform in Las Vegas, and his residency, An Intimate Evening with Santana, is a testament to his enduring appeal. However, Santana has also courted controversy in recent years. In 2023, he gave a 15-minute speech at a concert in Atlantic City that upset many fans. He spoke about gender identity, saying that when God made you and me before we came out of the womb, you know who you are and what you are. The comments were widely criticized, especially because they came at a time when many U.S. states were passing anti-LGBTQ legislation. Santana apologized on Facebook for his insensitive comments, but then deleted the apology and posted a cryptic poem instead. The controversy was a stark reminder that even legends can stumble. Santana has also faced criticism for his support of comedian Dave Chappelle, who has made controversial statements about transgender people. At the same Atlantic City concert, Santana expressed solidarity with Chappelle, saying, "I am like this with my brother Dave Chappelle." The comment sparked further backlash, particularly from LGBTQ advocacy groups. Carlos Santana, The man who had once been a symbol of peace and unity was now associated with divisive positions. But those who know Santana well say that he is not a bigot. They describe him as a man who speaks from the heart, often without thinking through the implications of his words. He is, above all, a deeply spiritual person, and his beliefs about gender and identity come from his religious convictions. He sees the world through a lens of faith, and he sometimes expresses that faith in ways that can be misunderstood. Carlos Santana's spiritual journey is as complex as his music. He was raised Catholic, and he has always maintained a deep faith in God. In the 1970s, he became a follower of Sri Chinmoy, an Indian spiritual teacher. Chinmoy gave him the name Devadip, which means the lamp, light, and eye of God. The relationship was a powerful influence on Santana's life, but he eventually left Chinmoy in 1982, citing differences in personal choices. In 1992, Santana experienced a profound religious conversion. He was baptized as a born-again Christian, and he credits his faith with saving him from suicide. "Jesus saved me," he told the Gospel Herald. "I surrendered my life, my soul, my body, and my spirit to him, and he changed me." He speaks of his faith with conviction, and he often incorporates spiritual messages into his concerts. Santana has also become a student of various spiritual traditions. He practices meditation and mindfulness, and he has said that he believes in the power of positive thinking. He has been influenced by the teachings of Norman Vincent Peale, the author of The Power of Positive Thinking, and he has spoken about the importance of having a positive mental attitude. He and his wife, Cindy Blackman Santana, have adopted a holistic approach to health, focusing on diet, devotion, dedication, and discipline. Santana is also a philanthropist. The Milagro Foundation, which he and his ex-wife founded in 1998, has supported hundreds of organizations around the world. The foundation focuses on providing education and health care to underprivileged children, and it is a reflection of Santana's commitment to giving back. Looking to the future, Santana shows no signs of slowing down. He continues to tour and perform, even with health challenges. His residency in Las Vegas is extended through 2025, and there are rumors of a new album in the works. At 77, he is still evolving as an artist and as a person. Carlos Santana's legacy is not just his music. It's his life. He has overcome immense obstacles to become a global icon, a symbol of hope and resilience. He has been a trailblazer for Latinx musicians, breaking down barriers and paving the way for future generations. He has used his platform to speak out for social justice, to support underprivileged children, and to spread a message of love and unity. But his legacy is also about his flaws. He has made mistakes, hurt people, and said things that have caused pain. He is not a perfect man, and he would be the first to admit it, but he has always strived to be better, to grow, to evolve. His spiritual journey is a testament to his commitment to becoming the best version of himself. At 77, Carlos Santana has finally revealed what we all suspected, that the man behind the legend is a complex, often contradictory figure. He is a man of deep faith and profound doubt, of immense talent and crushing insecurity. He has experienced the heights of fame and the depths of despair. But through it all, he has never stopped playing music, and he has never stopped believing in something greater than himself. His music will live on, but so will his story. It is a story of triumph and tragedy, of redemption and regret. It is a story that reminds us that we are all more than our accomplishments and more than our failures. We are all on a journey, and the most important thing is to keep moving forward, to keep searching for the light. As Carlos Santana said in a 2022 interview, "God is not done with me yet." The words are a testament to his enduring hope and his unwavering faith. He has walked through the valley of the shadow of death, and he has emerged on the other side, scarred but not broken. He has seen the darkness, and he has found the light. And for that, we are all grateful. To understand Carlos Santana, one must understand his relationship with his instrument. The guitar is not merely a tool for him, it is an extension of his soul. His playing style, which has evolved over 6 decades, is instantly recognizable. The sustained notes, the crystalline tones, the rhythmic precision, these are the hallmarks of a true master. But his style is not just about technique, it is about emotion. He plays with feeling, with a sense of passion and authenticity that makes his music resonate deeply. His early influences were diverse. He was inspired by blues legends like B.B. King, whose expressive bends and vibrato he absorbed, and by Latin American folk music, which gave him a sense of rhythm and melody. He also admired jazz musicians like Miles Davis and John Coltrane, whose harmonic sophistication and improvisational freedom he sought to emulate. His own sound is a synthesis of these influences, a unique blend that defies easy categorization. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Santana continued to evolve as an artist. He incorporated more elements of jazz fusion into his music, collaborating with musicians like Alice Coltrane and Wayne Shorter. He explored his spiritual interests through his music, often incorporating meditative interludes and complex compositional structures. His albums from this period are considered among his most ambitious and adventurous, even if they didn't achieve the commercial success of his early work. But the 1990s were a struggle. Rock and roll had changed, and Santana's music seemed out of step with the times. Grunge and hip-hop dominated the airwaves, and his fusion of Latin rock and jazz fusion seemed to belong to an earlier era. He continued to tour and record, but his albums lacked the commercial punch of his earlier work. It was a difficult time, and Carlos felt increasingly irrelevant. Then came Supernatural. The album was a gamble, a collaboration with a new generation of artists that could have been a disaster. Instead, it was a triumph. The album redefined Santana for a new era, introducing him to a generation of fans who had never heard his earlier work. It also proved that he was still a vital, innovative artist, capable of surprising audiences and challenging himself. His subsequent albums have continued to explore new musical territory. He has collaborated with artists as diverse as Herbie Hancock, Beyoncé, and Sting. He has produced albums that range from the smooth and commercial to the adventurous and experimental. He has never been content to simply rest on his laurels. He is a restless creative spirit, always seeking new challenges and new ways to express himself. His live performances remain the gold standard. He plays with an energy that belies his age, his guitar soaring and singing his band tight and powerful. He commands the stage with a presence that is both humble and magnetic. He connects with his audience sharing stories and jokes, and he always leaves them wanting more. Carlos Santana is not just a guitarist. He is a husband, a father, a son, a friend. He is a man with a rich and complex inner life, and his relationships are as important to him as his music. His marriage to Cindy Blackman, which began in 2010, has been a source of stability and joy. Cindy, a brilliant drummer, has been a member of his band since 2015. She brings a youthful energy to the group, and her playing is as passionate and innovative as his own. Their relationship is a partnership in every sense of the word, and they share a deep spiritual connection. Carlos is also a devoted father. His children have grown up, and he is proud of their accomplishments. Salvador is a successful musician, Stella is a singer-songwriter, and Angelica is a writer and filmmaker. He has also been a mentor to many younger musicians, passing on the wisdom and knowledge he has acquired over the years. His philanthropy has been a constant throughout his life. He has donated millions of dollars to charity, and he has been a vocal advocate for social justice. He has spoken out against racism, sexism, and homophobia, and he has been a supporter of organizations like the NAACP and the ACLU. He has used his platform to amplify the voices of the marginalized and to fight for a more just and equitable world. In his personal life, he is known for his warmth and generosity. He is approachable, and he often takes time to talk to fans. He is a man of deep humility, despite his fame and fortune. He never forgets his roots, and he is always grateful for the opportunities he has been given. His health has been a concern in recent years. He has suffered from a series of ailments, including back problems and a broken finger. He has had to cancel shows and postpone tours, but he remains optimistic and determined. He knows that he has many more years of music in him, and he is determined to keep playing as long as he can. Carlos Santana's story is a parable about the power of the human spirit. It is a story about how a young boy from a small town in Mexico who suffered abuse and hardship could rise to become a global icon. It is a story about how a man burdened by guilt and shame could find redemption through faith and forgiveness. It is a story about how an artist forgotten and dismissed could make a triumphant comeback. His story is also a cautionary tale. It is a reminder that fame and fortune do not guarantee happiness. It is a reminder that even the most successful people can struggle with their demons. It is a reminder that we are all vulnerable and that we all need help sometimes. But above all, his story is a testament to resilience. Carlos Santana has faced immense challenges, but he has never given up. He has always found a way to keep going, to keep creating, to keep searching for meaning. His music is a testament to his resilience, a soundtrack for a life filled with both triumph and tragedy. As he continues to perform into his late 70s, he remains a symbol of hope and perseverance. He shows us that it is never too late to make a difference, to start anew, to find the light. He shows us that we are all capable of greatness, if only we believe in ourselves. His message is simple but profound. We should never stop believing, never stop dreaming, never stop striving. We should always seek to be better, to do better, to be more compassionate and understanding. We should always celebrate our light and our divinity. Carlos Santana has lived a life that is worthy of a song. And perhaps, in the end, that is his greatest gift, his music, which continues to inspire and uplift, to heal and to connect. He is a legend, but he is also a man. And his humanity, with all its flaws and contradictions, is what makes him so compelling. At 77, Carlos Santana has finally revealed what we all suspected, that the man behind the mask is just as extraordinary as the music he makes. And for that, we are eternally grateful.